Thank you guys for joining the Organizing Executours session. I'm excited to present Tony and Rachel to you guys. They're going to be giving some insight into some stuff that they've done for journalists and site selectors and just ways to make it a really memorable experience. So it's Tony Smith, Director of Communications, and Rachel Semick, Content Strategist, and both with Tempe Tourism. So let me go ahead and share my screen and get to their presentation. All right, there you go.
All right, you can go to the next slide, Melissa. Hello, everyone. As Melissa said, I'm Tony Smith. I'm the Director of Communications for the Tempe Tourism Office. So excited to be here presenting with you today.
I'm Rachel Semick. I'm the Content Strategist at the Tempe Tourism Office. You will see this lovely photo to your left. It is at the beautiful Rula Bula in downtown Tempe. And mine and Tony's side hustle, we model for our office because we are very inexpensive. So you really see us in our content.
You'll notice there are no drinks in front of us. It literally was just, hey, you sit there. We'll get a picture of the great bar. All right, next slide, please.
So today we did, as Melissa mentioned, we are talking about doing executours and fam tours as what we do in the destination organization. But we really wanted to cover how we did it, what we did, how you could do your own and make it successful. So a couple of things we're going to be covering is why we actually did the virtual tours. I don't think it's a big major secret. We also are going to go over our timeline, how we picked our partners, some presentation examples and what was included in our giveaway packages, and then a working to-do list that you could utilize to kind of flex and be fluid with your own tours.
Right, next slide. So why did we start hosting the virtual familiarization or FAM tours? So again, like Rachel said, not a big secret, we had a pandemic. We're still in a pandemic. So as a tourism office, it really completely changed everything that we do. We weren't able to go forth with the marketing efforts that we normally do throughout the years. We couldn't bring people in from out of town. We couldn't promote to people from out of state, and we're funded by hotel bed tax. So we really, as a team, just had to come together and strategize and figure out what we could do differently. Normally, you know, in a typical fiscal year, we host maybe between 25 and 40 travel writers, content creators, social media influencers in Tempe who produce content for us. So that stopped in early March. We had some fam trips that were planned for, in-person ones planned for April and June. Those both had to be canceled. Those are postponed until fall of 2021. So we started thinking about, you know, how can we still connect with social media influencers and travel bloggers when we weren't able to host them in our city. And we had met quite a few of them in early 2020. There was a large conference in New York in January that brings together destination marketing organizations like ours with content creators. So we had this list of people that we really wanted to connect with, and we weren't able to bring them to town anytime soon. Our group sales team was able to attend a virtual tour that Visit Branson did for meeting planners. So they recorded the video. I was able to watch that and see if it was something that I thought we might be able to do. And I had a fancy new Zoom business account that we were using all the time. So that's what we used for the tours. As always, we still wanted to create some buzz about Tempe on social media. We're always trying to get Tempe as part of that conversation. You know, people know the larger cities in Arizona, Phoenix, Scottsdale, places like the Grand Canyon. So we're always trying to get Tempe's name out there. So we didn't want that to not happen just because we weren't able to host people from out of town. So a couple things happened. You know, we started thinking about how we could do things differently, and then a couple things happened to really get the idea started. I was talking to the marketing person for one of our local distilleries, and I had mentioned, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we could do like, you know, an online happy hour or something? And she said, well, you know, we can actually ship samples of product to people and use it. That goes against our marketing budget. We have funds for that. And I was like, okay, let's talk about that. Like, would someone from the distillery be willing to do a tour of the distillery and send out product to people. And it'd just be kind of a fun, happy hour way for people to get together. And then around the same time in May of 2020, we did some virtual meetings with the Women in Travel Summit, which is all female content creators. And one of my meetings was with Beth Santos, who is one of the founders of the organization. And we were just talking about, how we're going to do things differently. And, the pandemic had just started, and there was, people were thinking, will it be done by the fall? Will it just be a couple months? So she said, we're looking for a tourism office that's willing to host a virtual tour, and totally jumped at the chance. It was right aligned with what I was thinking of doing. So all in all, we did 5 virtual media fam tours, 2 at Caskworks Distilling Company, and 3 for travel content creators with varying themes. One of them was even held on a Saturday, and we invited family travel bloggers and their kids to join us. Okay, next slide.
So as I mentioned, we really wanted to break it down for you on how we created the timeline for it. And really for us, we started with the end date first and kind of worked our way backwards as far as we needed to do this. So it took us about 6 weeks to plan, execute, and it was just something we really wanted to showcase with you guys. Again, this is very fluid. You could put your own, topics, your own spots, depending what you wanted to do. This is absolutely a fluid timeline that you can move along, shorten, lengthen, up to you. But concept came to fruition June 1st as far as like the idea becoming born, us talking with WITS to be like, yeah, this is something we would like to do. We came up with a very large list of partners we really were like, who can we showcase? So we did it by category and narrowed it down to 3 stops. We also came up with a list of who we would want to invite. Again, fluid. So if you guys are looking at site selectors, other business partners in the community, VIPs, you would look at that list, see who would be really flexible and enjoy a tour like this. And then we also set our due date as well for RSVPs. That way we knew hey, we need to have this done so that we can ship out things on time and so on and so forth. Tony's gonna talk about the rest of the timeline.
Sure, and looking back on it now, I would probably extend this timeline a little bit. It was cutting it close, but we had the date set as July 15th. Things always take a little bit longer in the beginning to kind of get everything worked out. So maybe extend it, maybe 7 weeks would be better. Because really the most stressful part was shipping out the gift boxes and making sure that they arrived on time. So we used UPS for that. We wanted to do UPS ground just to save a little bit of budget there. Normally when VIPs or media come into town, we always provide a gift bag for them. So we wanted to provide that same experience for the virtual tour participants. So in our gift box, we had a Tempe Tourism visitor's guide, reusable coffee mug, a sticker set from a mural artist who was featured on the tour, socks from the Canopy by Hilton. That's one of their giveaways. And then for the tour that we did with the Women in Travel Summit, one of our partners was Four Peaks Brewing Company. So they offered to send 6 individual beers of different types to everyone in a separate package. So people were able to sip along as they were going on the tour. Then we did, most importantly, a practice run with all of our partners. And this, I highly suggest this. It took us about 45 minutes to do. The whole tour itself was about an hour. We didn't want people to spend too much time in front of their computers. We thought that maybe 10 minutes max for each partner would work. We had a short presentation at the beginning that we'll talk about a little bit on the next slide. So the practice run, we had a very specific time for all of our partners to call us. We asked them to call us from the location where they were going to be on the day of the tour, just so we could test out their Wi-Fi, make sure that everything looked good on screen. I honestly thought that most of them would have a colleague film them. That's what I would do. It makes me nervous to hold my camera and film myself, but they all just film themselves with their phones and use Zoom, and it worked pretty well. So that way during the practice, we were able to answer any questions that they had, make sure the technology worked as well as possible, hoping that people would be forgiving if something did go wrong, which sometimes can happen on Zoom. One of the tips that I would say as well, when we scheduled the actual day of the tour, we had a very specific time for everybody to call in and join the tour. So we did our presentation for like the first 10 minutes. The next partner would, or the first partner who was on the tour stops would call in at 10:10. The next one was 10:20. The next one was 10:30 or 10:35. I had instructed everybody that if they join the Zoom call and they're not let into the room right away, just to hang out for a minute, it just means that we were finishing up with the person who was right in front of them on the tour. So the attendees received their packages between July 9th and the 14th. I did mention we were cutting it close, and the virtual fam date was on Wednesday, July 15th. Okay, next slide, please. So some of the things that we would suggest that you think about when you're putting together a virtual tour, we really wanted to focus on diversity in the types of businesses, the types of speakers, and also the stories that they were providing. As Rachel said, ours were for content creators and travel bloggers. I know that your audiences are slightly different. So you could theme your virtual fans by category or topic. It could be food tours. It could be new sites in your city. But really what you want to focus on is something that makes your city stand out and something that's really unique for your city. So think about the places that you would like media or VIPs to see, even if you're working in economic development and you want to show sites, maybe you still want to show a local chef who just has a great personality and really be great on camera, just to be able to have that story about your city translate well on screen. Think about what locals love that someone from out of town might really like to see. For us, Four Peaks Brewing Company was a natural just because Zach, their communications manager, just has a great personality. He's very relaxed and easy to watch on screen. He just kind of goes through the Four Peaks story really thoroughly and quickly because he does tours quite often. And then their building is historic. So it's just kind of a cool space for everyone to see. It's more about the beer. It's kind of about the history of the brewery and this really cool location that they're in. So the tour, you really want to help tell the story of your city. So either through the people or the places that you show or a combination of both.
Yeah, and the other important thing is, making sure, does it translate well on screen? So with our stops, again, as Tony mentioned, like Four Peaks has their historic building, so being able to see that even on screen was really cool. And then you could use different areas. So, we were actually working out of Industrious at that point, and we had a big like mountain out our window. So it was kind of nice to be like, there's a mountain, like could rotate our screen really easily. But I think importantly, just making sure you have really good lighting, your partners have good lighting, looking at, again, who's charismatic on screen or at least can tell their story well. Like once you get them started on that story, maybe somebody doesn't, translate well on screen, but if they talk about something they're passionate about, it will come through. And then again, emphasizing the fact of Wi-Fi in that practice run and just making sure nothing glitches out. Four Peaks, it is a really old building. It was like built in the 1800s. It's thick, like very thick. So at a couple points we did lose him, which felt like 10 years. It was really like 3 seconds, but we were all like,
what do we do?
What do we do? So just being able to say like, yes, like, okay, he's back, we're fine. So just, again, working through those kinks, working with your partners. Again, phones were what everybody operated on. They didn't walk around with a laptop. So it was really just relying on your phone service. And I think another tip we'll say for that too is that those stories, can they be conveyed in under 10 minutes? Attention span of people, we like to make sure like, can a story be told in 10 minutes? We think it's a really good fit. And again, we kept our whole presentation under an hour. So I think, again, it's hard to stay focused for such a long period of time. We're all kind of zoomed out. And I think that's really, that 10-minute mark is really good for people because they can get a lot of information, ask questions when they need to. So make it very compelling.
And one of the things when I watched the tour that Visit Branson did, which props to them for being such early adapters of the technology. They did a boat ride at one of their lakes there. And it was a really cool concept, but it went on just a little too long. Like I think it was maybe 20, 30 minutes. And a boat ride, I think is only entertaining for so long if you're not the one on the boat who's like feeling the breeze and, so that's why we kind of decided on the 10 minutes. Going forward, I know some of the tourism offices are still doing virtual tours, even as travel is starting to pick up again. I believe that business travel is going to take a little while to come back to where it was pre-pandemic. So I think that these tours will still be a way where you can showcase your destination or places in your destination, or it might be if maybe people are taking trips that are shorter when they start traveling again, is there a way that you could use a virtual tour to kind of fill in those gaps? If there's someone who they can't meet when they're in town, could you arrange an interview for them on Zoom so they'd be able to talk to these key people in your city? So something to keep in mind as we move forward post-pandemic. All right, next slide, please.
So where should we go? So keeping that in mind, again, we really categorized it. So we made a list of hotels, we made a list of restaurants, key characters in the city. So we looked at those, who represents Tempe best. You can do the same thing, again, depending on your messaging and what you're trying to showcase. So break down things into categories. This is the best thing we can say. As Tony mentioned, we did 5 tours. Of those 5, we did 3 multi-stop tours. So we showcased 9 spots. And it was just really easy for us to be like, okay, again, what's going to convey well on screen? What kind of questions could we create? Like, what would people be curious about, and gets people excited? So that's kind of where we came up with these ideas. But again, this is a presentation. You guys will have access to this, I'm sure, after the fact. So you guys can utilize this as a working spreadsheet idea board, if you will, for your virtual tours, or how you would like to present information to your attendees.
And we had kind of thought, even before the first one ended, as we were emailing partners and chatting with them as we do on a regular basis, we just started thinking like, ooh, like they've done some interesting things as far as virtual tours or virtual experiences, or they're doing a great job with social media, really showing off some great images. So we started putting together kind of a wish list of other places that we thought we'd like to showcase. So that gave us plenty of content to do a few more. All right, next slide, please. So all of the creative stuff, which is, I don't know, not my favorite part. I guess the tours themselves were my favorite part, but this was fun as well. So we did have a PowerPoint that we used for the virtual tour. So it started out similar to this one with an intro slide for both Rachel and myself. And then we went through a PowerPoint for maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning. We had a quick video about Tempe. We had a few slides that you'll see in a minute that talked about some story ideas and just some fun facts about the city to give everybody a good sense of place. We use Canva for all of our designs. So if you have someone on your team who is well-versed in Adobe and is a graphic designer, good for you. We use Canva. We do have a graphic designer on staff, but we took this project on ourselves and used a bit of her guidance. So they have templates that you can use. We changed some minor things and added our brand colors. Canva is free to use. You can have a subscription to it, which gives you access to a few more fonts and some other design elements that you can use. Once the presentation was finished in Canva, we downloaded it to PowerPoint. The invitations were also created in Canva. And for those, we sent a PDF to everybody as an invitation and just attached it to an email or did a link, either one. And we wanted the invitation obviously to match the theme. So the first tour that we did with Women in Travel Summit was Greetings from Tempe. The second one was The Desert is Calling. That one had a more of a Sonora desert theme. We went to Desert Botanical Garden, to Coley Equestrian Center, and then visited with a local chef who makes brittle, and she uses pepitas and some other Southwestern ingredients. So she taught us how to make those. And then Castworks obviously had a cocktail theme. The invitation was very obvious that it was a online distillery tour and a happy hour at the end. We even had some of our participants who dressed up for it and made it seem like a date night, because again, this was in the summer, so people weren't really getting out of their houses very much. For postcards, we themed those to match the invitation. We wanted to put a cute calling card in the gift box just to remind everybody that the tour was coming up, to kind of build some excitement for it. And we also had the time and the date for the tour as well. We printed those at just a local print shop. We use our Zoom business account for the tours. We sent the Zoom link to everybody a few days ahead of the virtual tour. The biggest issue that we had, and please take note of this and save yourself some stress if you end up doing this. The biggest issue that we had with our tours was not getting the videos to play correctly. So we had, I don't know how many practices I called, where I had just called up my team and I was like, hey, can you join me on Zoom? And I would run through the presentation really quickly. And the videos were really important. We had one that was an introduction to Tempe. The artist JR, who was with us on the first tour, he had an intro video that showed him out in the community painting and doing all sorts of projects. So it was a really good introduction to him. And the video and the audio just weren't quite syncing up. And really up until a couple of hours before the tour began, we were still having trouble. So what ended up working for us is we made the video player slightly smaller. So took a rectangle that was this big, made it slightly smaller, and then instead of embedding the file, we actually embedded the YouTube link. So that was able to, made the videos able to play. So that really, once the videos played and everything seemed okay, the day was much less stressful. So, and one other thing that I would do too, before you run through the PowerPoint and the live presentation, play through the videos maybe 2-3 times, just to make sure that they are properly loaded. All right, next slide, please.
So as Tony mentioned, we did a visual presentation so that we would have some kind of, talking points. The creators who were on this particular call, well, most of them throughout the other presentations as well, hadn't ever been to Tempe or heard of it in general. I mean, we're lucky we're all Arizona cities here. So thank you guys for knowing. I hope you know what Tempe is. Otherwise, welcome. Hello. Um, we really wanted to showcase our destination. So we really opened up with that really captivating sunset. Arizona sunsets are the best. Drop a exclamation point in the chat here if you agree that Arizona sunsets are unmatched. I'd love to see a lot of exclamation points. Anyway, so we used a lot of user-generated content, otherwise known as UGC. So you'll notice that throughout our presentation, even this presentation, where we asked permission for each photo that is featured throughout our slides and said, hey, we would love to feature this on a PowerPoint. We'd love to feature this in a newsletter. We'd like to feature this on an Instagram post, all with credit. And then it just really kind of, again, elevates the experience. People really get a little taste of like, oh, this is what Tempe looks like. Okay, like I get it. And then we also, as Tony mentioned earlier, we talked about our talking points of like what our destination is about and kind of what people can expect when it comes to Tempe. So we've listed kind of our outdoor recreation. We listed, art stuff in our area that features local artists. So definitely, again, just showcasing our destination to make it really beautiful and using other people's imagery so that it really communicates that message versus being like Tempe, this is us, we took this photo. But now I'm being like, hey, look, Smith Culbertson, he went on a hiking mountain, loved it. So it's just really cool things to be able to communicate that message. Next slide. Maybe. Alyssa, are you there? Okay.
There we go. All right, so thank your partners as often as you possibly can. We were so thrilled that we were able to find partners who were willing to take a chance with us on something that we really hadn't tried, and we just had really workshopped on our own. So we did have a slide to thank all of our partners, included the names of everyone who was part of the virtual tour, and also had their Instagram handles. You could obviously use LinkedIn or Facebook, email addresses, whatever works best here. I think by now, most people know how to use Zoom, but at the time we thought it'd be great for them to follow a few rules during the tour. So we had them stay on mute, type their questions in the chat or raise their hand, and then change to the speaker view. So whenever we actually shifted to the tour, they'd be able to see everyone who was leading the tour on full screen. And then on the right side are just a few scenes of the images that we used in the PowerPoint of Four Peaks Brewing Company. That's a screen grab of the video that J.R. Steiner, the mural artist, provided for us, and then a couple of photos from the new Canopy by Hilton Tempe downtown. The Canopy had opened in June of 2020, and our tour was in July of 2020. So it really gave people a first look at a property that had just opened. All right, next slide, please.
And we did want to show you guys, we always get, hey, what was in your swag bags? Like what happened? What can people take away? So think about, those, really fun things that you'll actually utilize. Will these VIPs, media, site selectors really enjoy? So again, mention that we got a mug. I happen to have mine. We had stickers from the artist, Canopy provided socks, the notebooks. We also included that calling card, which had the information as like a reminder that the tour was coming up. And then we had our visitor guide as well. One of the attendees actually posted it to our Twitter and said, excited for the Tempe Tourism virtual press trip tomorrow. Can't wait to share my experience. So it was just a nice way. We're like, yay, she got the box, A. And then B, to be like, yay, she's excited and she gets to interact with things that are happening. We saw a lot of the attendees utilizing the little notebook that was included and taking some notes about their Tempe virtual tours or asking questions. They could write down answers there. So it was really great. Also included a sample of the invite that was sent out pre-tour to invite them to the actual virtual tour. So that's where you can see that here. So yes, we are very excited to show this with you guys. Again, flexible, the invite and postcard were both created in Canva. Again, very easy tool to use, makes everyone look like a professional.
And we did theme the gift items for each tour. So this is for the first one. When we went to Desert Botanical Garden, Coley Equestrian Center, and Tracy Dempsey Originals, For that one, we sent them a succulent at Desert Botanical Garden. They had one of their plant experts who showed everybody how to create their own succulent garden. So she talked about the type of soil to use, how much you should water a succulent, and people learned so much and just asked so many questions. So we sent succulents, we wrapped those up as best we could, put them in a box. We also included the brittle that Tracy Dempsey was going to do a live demonstration of during the tour. So they'd be able to eat the brittle as they were watching her make it. And then we had a postcard from Coley Equestrian Center with a really pretty sunset. So that helped bring that tour a little bit more to life. All right, next slide, please. All right, and this one has a video and it's sort of playing. So this makes me so happy that it's working. So thank you, Melissa. So these are a couple of scenes from the actual virtual tours. So up in the upper left corner, that's Chef Ken Arneson from the Canopy by Hilton Tempe downtown. Their director of sales started out the tour. She was filming herself in the lobby, talked about the hotel, talked about the artwork in the hotel, and just kind of the whole concept of the Canopy brand. She moved to the bar, and then she had one of the bartenders make one of their signature cocktails, and then she stopped to see Chef Ken at they have kind of an open show kitchen, and he did a quick demonstration of flatbread, and then talked about the food that they have at Alter Ego. The video that's playing is from one of our participants who was able to capture scenes from the tour and create an Instagram story. And she was just so super excited to share this with her fans and followers. And really, we didn't know what to expect as far as what types of social media content might be generated. So it was really interesting to see how creative these content creators were to be able to share this virtual tour with everyone. The bottom left is one of the owners of Castworks Distilling Company. He went to the bar of their tasting room after he did the walkthrough of the distillery and had everyone take out their spirits. We had instructed people they had to have like a lemon and like soda water or something on hand. And then he showed them how to make several different cocktails and then answered all types of questions. And then we just had a really fun interactive conversation. It really felt like a real happy hour. Then at the end of every tour, I had everyone pose for a group photo. So I asked them to smile, and I used TechSmith Capture to capture the screen grab. And then we sent the photo along with the presentation to everybody at the end of the tour. Right, next slide, please.
And yes, look at the camera, Greg. Yes. So I did want to create a little checklist for you guys. Again, this is just kind of what we thought of. Again, very flexible, very fluid to what you guys want to complete with your site selectors, VIPs, anybody who is needing to do a virtual trip. This is just kind of what we thought. And again, if you don't want to do swag bags, maybe it's, it's prepared documents that you have to send, put a postcard. If they are going to visit eventually, maybe put a gift card to like the favorite restaurant, like buy a drink for them. Like it's kind of up to you, but get creative with it. But this will be a part of this presentation. It's not state secrets, but just wanted to share kind of what our thoughts are on best practices and be able to share this with you guys. So we appreciate you guys taking that look at that and happy to answer. And next slide, I guess.
Next slide is a question slide. So
yeah,
this is open. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Yep. Feel free to end it. There you go.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys want to turn on video and sound and stuff, let's ask questions.
First of all, I want to say I am disappointed that none of the meetings I've done over the past year have included treats, drinks, plants, none of that.
We know at a tourism office, we know how to entertain people. and one thing I will say, I forgot to mention this during the presentation, at the end of the first multi-stop tour that we did, and keep in mind, this is July, this is early on in the pandemic, several people on the tour at the very end when we asked, just like we're asking now, if they had questions, a couple of them were like, we felt like we went somewhere. Like we honestly felt like for just an hour, like we weren't sitting in our houses, we weren't in front of our computers. Like it was so compelling to them that they really felt like they got a little bit of a break, which is really all that we could ask for. Getting articles and some social media posts as a result too was just the icing on top of the cake. But just giving people that visual break and having them learn something about our city in a time when it was really difficult to do so was really important to us.
Yeah, even for the people on the meeting that may not be giving site tours or anything like that of a city, I think there's still a lot to take away from everything you shared, because it's all about creating that experience with it, whether it's for, you know, your business. If you're an engineer, even just creating an experience of what your company is like and why you should use them, and the products or the you know, projects that they've worked on. So there's a lot of really good takeaways from this presentation. So thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you. And I think, you know, able to show your personality is really important too, because so much of our communication is just through email. We rarely even pick up the phone to call each other. So, you know, just be as authentic as you can as you're explaining your city or your product or whatever it is that you're trying to showcase.
Yeah. So something you kind of touched on, I have a friend that is an influencer, and she went to this summit where it was just all influencers, and they, you know, created this whole experience for them. Is that something you guys foresee doing in person down the road?
So typically most of our tours tend to be individual tours. Sometimes we'll have multiple people in town at the same time who are content creators, but we tend to have them do different things during the day. We kind of call it a choose your own adventure, because some of them, their followers or just them personally, they like to do something slightly different than the other people on the tour. So we give them ideas of places to eat, places to go, things to see and do when they're here. And then we usually meet up with them, you know, maybe for a hike in the morning, or we meet up with them for dinner in the evening. Going forward post-pandemic, I'm not sure if we'll do group tours again. I mean, a lot of the group tours were, you know, 6 people in a van with us driving around, seeing the same things. I don't know if those are going to look the same, but we'll just kind of, you know, take a temperature check of people as we go into the fall and see what people are comfortable to do. Obviously, if they're content creators who know each other, that's one thing. If they're people who you're bringing in from multiple states, you know, that might be something different. So we might be using more Ubers and, you know, meeting people places than we have in the past, but we're still really looking forward to getting back to showcase our city in person again. Zoom is great, but there is nothing like an in-person visit.
I agree. I very much so agree. Your innovation is very inspiring. So I love seeing it. And we've seen a lot of companies have to innovate the way they do things. Even, you know, with Canal Partnership, we host monthly in-person events that we're sometimes having crowds of 300 people, and that's our revenue. So how do you translate that to online and engage people? And I mean, here we are over a year later, and it's working. It's working for everybody. So that's awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? We have until 11:20. So I mean, you have Tony and Rachel here at your disposal. So ask them questions.
Hi, Greg.
Hi. We get a lot of fam tour requests from social media influencer travel bloggers. I guess my question is, what's the threshold? What's the threshold of like amount of followers that you would consider like, okay, this is worthwhile to have this social influencer come out? Or is there even a threshold? Is it just like, do you guys have like a certain number in mind?
So we do a couple different things. So for us, we really utilize engagement rate as kind of our marker, but that's up to you. If you guys operate on a specific thing where you guys have certain goals, like you have to have this many impressions or total reach. That is a lot of things that you can look at. We utilize Chromebook has an extension from Upfluence. It's UP Fluence, like influencer, but Upfluence. But it's Upfluence, and it actually, you can look on Instagram profiles and it'll give you kind of like a back end view of their stats. So you can see their engagement rate, their version of an estimated price per post. It compares them to other influencers. And it's kind of up to you guys. It's more about you setting your own threshold. For us, we've hosted people with as little as, 4,000 followers up to 250,000 followers. It's kind of the run of the game. But for us, we look at, is the influencer reaching a demographic that we'd like to hit? So maybe it's a very niche market, like they're vegan influencer from Canada. We're like, well, we'd like to hit Canada. We have lots of vegan options. And they also like outdoor adventure. Great, we have these things. So it's kind of more doing that kind of self-assessment of like, what are your guys' target goals? And then kind of backwards funneling that to what kind of influencers you'd like to host. But I mean, it's not necessarily a number. You could have that person who has 100,000 followers, but a 1% engagement rate. And if you do that math, like we're all, math wizards here, like that's only maybe 100 to 1,000 people, depending how many followers they have. So it's kind of one of those things where just like, you got to look at that engagement rate, which one's going to give you the biggest ROI, who's really going to get those like bookings for you, if bookings are your goal.
Do you have a media platform that you like have a preference over?
As far as where they're at.
Yeah, so like I personally prefer people who are YouTubers versus Facebook or Instagram individuals. Do you guys have a similar philosophy?
Yeah, we're not fans of like if somebody comes out with me like I have 200,000 followers on Facebook, I kind of still laugh because I think we all know like it's a pay to play world. So their post may be seen by 500 people if they have 200,000 followers, and I'm like that does nothing for us. But what we do look at again is Instagram. Typically, we've recently started getting into TikTok partnerships. Those have been working really well for us as far as reach goes. And then we have worked with YouTube bloggers in the past as well. So yeah, I think those are just great platforms. It's such a visual. And then Tony and I actually really appreciate when somebody has a blog. So something that can be SEO focused. So it'll be, you know, can they actually have that evergreen content live forever versus an Instagram post or something else? Like it eventually gets buried with new content being posted constantly. So unless you can contractually put them in, like you have to post about us every 6 months so that it pops back up to the top of the feed and reminds people, oh, you went to page like, you know, a year ago, or you went to page 2 years ago. Like you have to see if you can get that kind of contractual agreement, but otherwise SEO is always going to be great. If you keep track of your blogs, like blog content that's created for you, you could always see if there's a restaurant that closes or a new business that opens, you could always kind of re-pitch them like, hey, like this business closed, but like these two opened. We think you'd really like them if you wanted to include them in your blog that you did for us like 2 years ago. It updates their blog. It helps Google recognizes that it's new content. It'll push that blog back up and it organically grows itself. So SEO is the key. So is video. So it's good to be like YouTube.
And many of our partnerships too, they involve a variety of mediums. So like Rachel said, we really like people who have blogs for that evergreen content, but we'll also put in a contract. Maybe they do 3 static Instagram posts. They do a couple of stories with maybe 3 slides each. If they're on TikTok, we'll put that as part of the contract if that's a strong channel for them. We've had some really good luck over the last year working with local influencers who have been able to focus on restaurants or some of the smaller local businesses that don't have the advertising dollars. So one of the influencers that we work with, she's a foodie influencer, mainly on TikTok, also on Instagram. She did a video about a rotating sushi place that's really right around the corner from my house. And it had over 600,000 views. It was insane. Rachel and one of our other teammates went to a restaurant that's in a neighborhood in Tempe, and it just happens to have a lakeside location. The whole restaurant is outdoors, which is perfect for, you know, people getting back to going out to eat again when, you know, patios were considered much safer. That video had 100,000 views, and they had told us that Monday after the video premiered on TikTok that their business increased 30%, and they really think it was just based on that video. So there's some things that you can do as a team as well, or to work with these. We didn't know how many influencers were based in Arizona until that became our only focus, was looking for people who were based in Arizona. And we found really a wealth of talent here. And I always say, go with your gut too. If we like to work with people who are nice and people who are easy to work with. If you get a bad feeling, or they're a little pushy, or they're just asking for the world from you, then maybe that's not the right fit.
Last question, then I'll quiet myself down. You guys said something about a influencer contract. Would you ever have one of those like samples available? Because we've never done one of those. And then one of the issues we run into is obviously we're so far away from everybody, right? Like everyone thinks the state ends at Flagstaff, but actually it still goes for 2 more hours. So so like we utilize the Arizona Office of Tourism a lot when it comes to like vetting these social media influencers, except for we get we used to get a lot of international social influencers that AOT can't vet. And so what do you guys do in that situation?
And I think the Upfluence extension still works for people from out of the country, right, Rachel?
Yeah, it does. So to answer your first question about the contract, I dropped the link in the chat. We use a program called Business Ease, and you buy a contract that you get to keep forever.
That's awesome.
And Tony likes to call it the color by numbers contract. So it tells you exactly
Perfect.
what you need to fill in. Like, and again, you decide on the deliverables, but it's just a really easy contract to use. It is extensive. We actually just modified it ourselves in-house with our in-house lawyers, and had them add like kind of like a health COVID release kind of situation. So kind of updated to make sure it was like truly like representative of our brand and CYA. So we did that. I'm going to look for the Chrome extension for Upfluence, but it does. It works for anybody. I was pulling people in from Europe and everywhere. So again, like Paige is actually like, you know, probably a big international market target. So I can imagine you getting some international people. And that's your choice, how you figure out how they get there. Do you split the cost with somebody in regards to flights and hotel or content fee? I think a lot of destinations and cities in general are just starting to get into the idea of being able to pay content creators. So just keeping that in mind too. Some of them do it for trade, where others do it like for paid. So there's a lot of things, but this is where a contract is helpful.
And
Thank
the
you, I
contract
appreciate it.
templates are $250, and then you get to keep the template forever. And it's about 8 pages that it goes through like all of the payment structures. You can put in what their payment amount is, if you're giving them a deposit, if you're not, if you're giving them a stipend for food and meals, that's part of it as well. And then it has due dates for everything. There's the very end that lists out all the deliverables and when everything is due. We also review all the drafts before anything's posted, so that way we can make sure they're using the proper hashtags, both hashtags that are for Tempe tourism, but then also using ad or sponsored, which is required by the FTC. So there's a lot of elements that go in there, but the contracts are made specifically for influencer partnerships like this, so they cover most of the bases.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, anytime. Damien, I saw your question, but if you want to get on stage, you just like put yourself visible or turn off your mic if you don't want to be on camera, that's fine. But if you want to kind of ask us a little bit, I'm trying to read your question, but I'm actually really distracted. I can't understand your question. Maybe Tony can give it a whirl.
Let me take a look.
So maybe working with companies that are advertising, how to help ensure their engagement online with advertising, rather than just like showing a restaurant or something.
You know, Rachel and I are part of the communications team, so we don't actually deal with a lot of online advertisements. However, as Rachel said, we do pay to play on Facebook for sure, because no one would see our posts otherwise. So we do promote our content on Facebook, and then we also have ads that we run on YouTube, both the bumper ads, like the ads that you see before a video plays, and then we also promote our own videos and blogs as well. I'm sorry I can't answer that question a little more. If we had our marketing person here, we totally could.
No, I think that's helpful. And so are most of the businesses that you work with and promote, are you going to them, or do you have a lot of people coming to you wanting to work with you also?
So we're not a membership organization, so no one pays dues in order to be promoted by us. That allows us to promote anyone in the city, whether it's, you know, a husband and wife owned restaurant with a tiny staff to a hotel with 300 rooms. So we do have a lot of times it's Rachel and I brainstorming about who we think we would like to work with, or who we just think has a really interesting story. And then sometimes it's us just going to those restaurants or businesses and just talking to people and telling them we're from the tourism office and getting to know more about them. I always like the philosophy of getting to know somebody before you ever need them for something, you know, just to kind of collect those stories and the information, those little tidbits from people in your community, because you never know when you might be asked that question or when they might be perfect for a media pitch or for a virtual tour or an in-person fam tour as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Your presentation was so in depth that I didn't even have an opportunity to develop that many questions. How about let's do an exercise? We have 15 minutes. Let's all learn a TikTok dance together. Viral.
I don't do the dances, I will say that.
Greg is already finding it. He's not down.
Greg quit.
A little bit of these, whatever it is.
Yeah. I guess like also, as Tony mentioned, like we're not membership based. So as far as like our content where we source it and everything, like it's just us going into the community. I think that was something else we really wanted to do with our channels is be able to support the business through the pandemic. So as she mentioned, like we work with local influencers, but we as a brand on especially TikTok, like we worked as influencers. It was myself and Audrey from our team. So it's, you know, it's just one of those things where like, yeah, like it's just really easy for us to like go eat food. Like, darn. Yes, I get a thumbs up. Or to be able to like show off properties, hotel properties. We also did a lot of photo and video shoots to just update our content. We, you know, had nothing else going on during COVID. So we were like, well, this is a good time to update that video that's 5 years old. So let me go to the new hotel property, get some footage. Let me go to this, like to the lake and get like their new boats. Like, so a couple of our footage had been, you know, pretty dated. And it wasn't dated by outfits. It was just like dated because like equipment was there, or we have new properties, or that business closed. So we would do like behind the scenes clips. You know, we're just kind of multitasking, and it was really easy for us to be able to again like touch on different places being showcased. And those donut boats Tony mentioned earlier, like that's been our best performing video to date. We have, I think, like 400,000 views on it on our TikTok. Like it's kind of bananas. It really shot up our following on TikTok. We, I think, gained like 9,000 followers in that particular month. So we went from like 9,000 to almost 20,000. We're like, yay, like go us. But it really helped like the boat rental place because now they get to be able to rent these boats and stuff. So that was a big celebration. They were like, our phones have been ringing off the hook. What did you do? And we're just like, we're sorry. It looked really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Greg dropped another question. For marketing, would creating a larger fam tour budget be smart nowadays with most money going towards print, billboards, TV, and maybe getting more bang for your buck with influencers?
I think if it's the right influencers, yes. I think because your social media following is growing as it should, but it's never going to be as large as an influencer's is. I mean, at Tempe Tourism, we're really close to 10,000 followers on Instagram. We're going to get there this summer. I know it. But if you're working with someone who has 50,000 followers or even 20,000 followers, whatever the number is, and their followers are really engaged, I think there's actually some great return on investment. We've hosted some influencers in town who are commenting and people are asking them questions as they're posting about Tempe. And I still remember like walking to the boat rentals kiosk at Tempe Town Lake, and one of our influencers like, oh my gosh, one of my followers said she just booked her trip to Tempe. Like she's staying in the hotel that I'm staying at. She needed to get away. Like she's already booked her trip. So there are some examples of, you know, when people really, as they say, are able to influence people's travel decisions. And I think, especially for a smaller city like Tempe, our budget is finite. It's not huge. We can only afford so much advertising. And obviously we're trying to be really strategic with where we advertise and the types of messagings that we put out there. But it really helps supplement that if you can add in some social media influencers as well. They're a lot like Amazon reviews. People put a lot of trust in them. That's true.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, Tony and I have actually talked a lot about influencers before. So if you need more presentations, we can definitely send those your way as well. We did put Tony did put our emails in the chat. So if you guys do have follow-up questions or think of things, I know a lot of people like to ask like, hey, can we see the virtual tour video? I don't know how the information is shared afterwards, Melissa, but if anybody wants to see that, we can definitely share that link. Tony probably still has it somewhere. And
I do. And I will say, shame on me, the very first tour that we did, I was so excited to get it started and kind of nervous and just hoping that everyone showed up on time and it was going to work and the videos were going to play. I forgot to hit record until we were at Four Peaks. So put a sticky note on your computer with a, you know, in red, right, hit record. I haven't done it since, but that first one kind of breaks my heart a little bit. But anyway, it's fine.
Yeah, that's good. There's definitely a lot of lessons learned throughout Zoom life.
Right. And people are very forgiving of technology. You know, everyone is just trying to get it through. And I think it's not a meeting in 2020 or 2021. If there isn't some sort of tech issue, we're all used to that and expect it, and we just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. Okay, well, so let's throw a curveball. If you could have any budget and do any kind of campaign, what is some like super awesome, expensive campaign you might want to do for Tempe?
Oh man.
I'm like, we're kind of frugal as just like natural human beings. I think
Like get Ariana Grande to come have coffee with you or something.
I mean, we did have Kim Kardashian and Kanye West eat at Waffle House. That wasn't our doing, but we like to take credit. So
I've spent a lot of time I went to ASU, so I spent a lot of time at that Waffle House.
So there you go. Like we got the big times. I don't know. I don't think there's, I mean, I think we're doing what we wish to do, I guess. And, again, for us, it's just getting our name out there. We just want people to understand like how cool the city is. And we're such a little like hub and spoke, like you're only a few hours, like, from Sedona, Flagstaff, Page. So you're just so close to everything. If you head the other direction, like Tucson, like Sierra Vista, Yuma, like you can go anywhere. It's just such a like perfect location. So I think, I don't know, dream person,
I don't know. I mean, I think luckily for all of us, Arizona's a bucket list destination. I think for a lot of people, I went to Page and Lake Powell for the first time 3 or 4 years ago, and we were the only Americans in our hotel. And I just felt kind of bad because I thought, oh my goodness, like I drove 6 hours to get here. I could come here anytime I wanted. And these people are from Belgium and Japan and China, and they've like, been planning for this trip for so long. And it just makes you realize how lucky we are to live in a place like we do. I think going forward, I'm very curious to see what in-person fam tours will evolve to be. Like I mentioned, I don't know if it will be us leading them around as much as we have in the past, or if it's going to be them doing things on their own again. As we look to our budget for next fiscal year, which starts in July, we're really going to look at some of those story angles that haven't been covered or haven't been covered in a while. What we like to see is if a blogger comes out to Tempe, if they're able to get content that actually ranks higher than ours, I think that's awesome, because we're, as a Tempe tourism office, you can talk about Tempe all you want, but it's very self-serving and doesn't seem as transparent, even though we love it and what we're saying is true. But I think if somebody from out of town is able to talk about your city in such an authentic way and really give people a lot of reasons to visit, then that means a lot to a reader who's just searching for a place to visit themselves.
Exactly.
And we'll invite The Rock. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, The Rock standing on rocks. I like it's ready.
Too good.
Too good. I did drop the Google Chrome extension for Upfluence. They do have a paid program. That is what we are buying into in our next fiscal year. That way we can actually do reporting. I currently manually pull our reporting for our campaigns. It's hard. So we wanted a program that actually did that for us by tracking, campaign hashtags, etc. And it'll pull it into a nice pretty part and put a bow on it. So we're excited. But they have a Chrome extension that is free. You get 10 profiles per day for influencers. It pulls up any profile that they have linked together. So if they have like a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, sometimes they have their blog attached somehow, magical way. And then they even have TikTok numbers on there as well. So it's just a really good way to, again, measure how an influencer is doing and just see if it's a good fit, especially if they're like, yeah, I've got a really large audience, but if that audience isn't in your target market, or if it's just like a city that isn't, like their city's like really large, but it's somewhere that just isn't likely to fly to Arizona, then it's not going to be really helpful. So we don't do a lot of international markets, if you will, because we're Tempe.
Unless this comes from the Office of Tourism, really helps us there. Exactly. And I did drop our email addresses in the chat. It's just Tony with an I at tempetourism.com and Rachel at tempetourism.com. So any other questions that come up as you start to plan tours like this, please let us know. Please reach out. We'd be happy to help.
Well, thank you, ladies. I guess we'll just wrap up a little bit early then. Our final general session will kick off at 11:30. So we've been hearing a lot of different marketing strategies, small budgets, collaboration, tours. We've heard so much great information. So it'll be a good case study session to give us some other ideas for even things done out of the state. So thank you, Tony and Rachel. It was a fun conversation. I learned so much, and you will definitely hear from me a lot.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.